How would you say you've grown as people since the last time you toured?
Quite a lot.
That's a deep one to start with.
Quite a lot.
Hell of a lot.
Lots of growth.
I'd say we're more forgiving of each other. And I'd say I'm a little bit harder in general.
I mean, we kind of had very much an individual journeys, didn't we, separately? Because obviously the pandemic happened and then we couldn't be a band. But I think it was a necessary. It was necessary for our continued development. I think we're closer than ever. We get on better than we ever have done. And I think...
Except when we first met, that was really good.
Yeah, that was good.
No, it wasn't.
I just spat a nail on you, sorry mate.
Oh, thanks.
Quite wanted that.
I think, you know...
Well, there it is. Carry on.
The future is bright for Lady Bird. That's what I'd say.
Word. Lady word.
Lady word.
Sam's a father now.
I'm a father now.
I'm an orphan.
Joe's an orphan now.
And I'm...
Alex has always been an orphan.
And I'm facing my addictions. So we've come a long way.
There we are.
I think that sums it up.
How do you, that's interesting, because that's kind of three very individual, but at the same time, those journeys are kind of happening in parallel.
Pretty big
So
stuff.
what was that last couple of words? They were nice words.
3 in parallel.
Those journeys are happening in parallel, despite the
yeah.
fact they're all the kind of individual things.
Maybe
Well, they happened at the same time,
Maybe
so in
more
that sense, yes.
perpendicular, I'd say. Conjoined for sure. We're very, very connected, the three of us. I certainly personally felt like I needed a big old break from the band and even our relationships at points. You know, I think we all gave ourselves that.
I think we...
So yeah, I guess you could say in parallel, but it's always felt like in parallel before, but I feel like we actually needed some real distance and difference.
It'd been intense, hadn't it? It was an intense couple of years up until the point that that everything kind of stopped. So you know, and you know, obviously life didn't stop. We continued to happen, and I think it was just the nature of the times that we were getting on apart. You know, and but I think ultimately it's done us a real good.
It's done us a real good.
I actually forgot how much I loved playing, like until we started getting at it again. You know, like that's the level of growth that went on in the meantime was for me almost like a moving on completely, thinking maybe I didn't want to even go down this line.
To be fair,
getting back to playing together has just been excellent.
so basically we didn't talk to each other for a little while, and that's been fucking great. And we've come together now, and we're just laughing and giggling all the time.
No, we're not.
I'd really like it if
It's
the
a
BBC picked this interview up, son. No more swearing, please.
Does the relationship between the three of you, does it feel stronger than it's ever been before, do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could even joke about that before. If we like even joked about it, it'd be really sore, and like, you know, I'd look at Joe going, yeah, which is funny now, and and I know it's not true, but back then there's been a bit of me that goes, oh, you bastard. You know? So that's an indicator that we're really safe now.
Yeah, basically the more we mug each other off,
The funnier it gets.
the more, the closer we are, really.
Which is how it should be.
So Joe can't even contain himself.
Yeah, it's really nice. I'm not going to lie. It was tough. It was just tough.
Slim pickings, wasn't it?
All the time.
On the jokes front, yeah.
It was tough. But the turning point was when we finished our album.
10 o'clock.
We went into we had big time out because of COVID lockdown, and the guy who recorded Social Potions, which was our first record, he's, you know, he lives in his own world, so therefore, you know, and he's quite happy with that, and was able to have us in, even though the rest of the country was shut down. So
It was yeah, kind of.
just before the
about
breakout.
Yeah.
Summer, wasn't it? So
Yeah, that first summer, and it was just before. It was in the lead up to when my son was due to be born, and we didn't know where we were going to go, and we were all just deflated. And I was chanting as well, actually. And I was like, I just really want them both to be up for going back to Jim Riley, who produced Social Potions. And thank the good Lord in the heavens, they both were up for it. And we got straight in there, and I got home, and then my wife went into labour with my son, and that sort of helped us all kind of realise the bigger picture, among other challenges that were mentioned.
Absolutely.
So that obviously is the circumstances to build up a proper, like, you know, vibe and relationships with one another. Yeah.
Do you know what? I don't actually think that I don't think our relationship has gotten stronger. I think that was always like pretty impenetrable. But you know, we became really close as sort of like post-teen young men, and really fucking needed each other. Excuse my language. I can bleep that out.
Sorry.
And I think we needed to not be together to learn to just look after ourselves. That's all that is. That's just being independently strong. Just enables the natural things to flourish.
We've done a
doesn't
lot
it?
of helping each other, haven't we?
Yeah, when we became codependent.
We knew all the answers as individuals. I think we just needed to go and practice that as opposed to philosophising over it. But in terms of Sam's son, big up my G. Well, you know, we found out about that, and it was a hard thing because, you know, we were doing the band, and it was like, oh Christ, this is going to happen. But I think there was a lot of egos going on. Certainly for me, anyway. I can't speak for these boys, but there's a lot of ego. There's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of like, it should be this way, it should be that way, and there wasn't enough ease in life. And I think we've all just eased up, and we're allowing life to flow now. And I think that comes with life experience and getting older. I think it also, I mean, just, you know, you're brought right back down to earth when there's a child about, and you suddenly realise that, you know, there's more important things in life than
anything you want.
Yeah. So
There's more important things in life than anything you want.
So, you know, and me and Sam went for a big old walk, didn't we? About a month before Arthur was born, before we went in the studio. And we just told each other how we felt, didn't we?
Looking at baby horses.
Looking at baby horses, funnily enough. Mm-hmm. But no, we just, you know, just said, well, this is how I felt, and this is how you made me feel, and this is how you made me feel. And Sam just stood there and listened. And you talked a bit about it, and we came a long way.
Next thing you know,
we're
both cooing over baby Arthur.
That's it.
Uncle Al he's called.
Uncle Al, that's me.
Uncle Al.
We've spent this interview so far kind of talking about your relationship together from a personal point of view. The thing I've always enjoyed about your songwriting is the fact that you straddle the personal and the political with quite a degree of ease. How do you see that relationship in your music reflected over the last two singles that you've released?
Can I have a crack at that before you do? Because that's really your question to answer.
Crack on.
So Joe's going to answer.
Well, no. But as in, I've got thoughts and feelings about that topic and the word political. I think the reason it's straddled so easily is that we talk about personal things and people hear political stuff in it. We never talk about anything overtly political, really. Not that I could put out perhaps with WWW, you know, but like it's still there. You're not talking about politics. Got a single political wasteland, which even in that, you're not really talking about like politics. Political establishment is a very like distant thing, but when you talk about the personal earnestly, you hit almost kind of like universal matters. So people hear the political in it. In terms of actual content, that's up to you, mate.
I'm glad Joe went first because he's made a very good point there, which I probably wouldn't have really brought in because it's such a vast question. But yeah, politicism is so restricted. It's entirely, you know, subject to criticism because of that, really. The fact that it's a really small arena and the world and worldly problems and all the things that personal and mutual are way bigger than that. So yeah, it is true what Joe says. Politicalism is sort of a personal boundary. Everyone's got a different bandwidth, how much they can cope with, how much opinion they have. And to be fair, I do use the word political a lot when I actually don't mean it, because I can only write songs about stuff that is not political, but like has a contextual. I don't know. I'll try and say it, and then I'll invite one of the boys to just rephrase it in a sentence, rather than share an opinion, right? But it's like I can only get off over saying something that has depth and meaning and may help, like, just offer an alternative perspective on something, and it often falls within the constraints of narratives, which often come into politics and other such issues. But it's always from a personal thing, whether it's like love that's about a political, controversial relationship between two lovers and their needs and opposite agendas. You know, it's always like the conflict between two colliding agendas. That's usually where I get off.
It also feels like one of your most personal songs, though. Love.
Yeah, but it's not well, it's kind of related to me, but it's again about this little space where the two sides meet. What do you say?
Well, I mean, taking love as an example, that's one of the greatest forces for like causing joy and devastation in the world, isn't it? So like it really is a motivator of politics, if you want to be talking about that, whether it's recognised as such or not. So it's, yeah, I think you're pretty spot on there, Sam. I don't think there's much narrowing down to do there.
I think you always just kind of hit the point on the head without directly hitting the point on the head. You know, I think you just open up the conversation for people to question. I think that's kind of, you know, rather than going, this is the case, I think it's kind of more sensible and intelligent just to give people the opportunity to question rather than making them question. I think that's much more interesting, and certainly what I look for in music.
And to feel, more important than anything, to feel, and to feel connected. You know, we all actually see the world very differently. And when we talk about political issues, that's the most apparent. I'd be very surprised if we all voted the same. Those of us who do and don't vote neither confirm or deny.
To be honest, I'm not even sure if I know what political means.
Yeah, but then in terms of like actually acting in the world as well, do very different things that we can converge on points of real value. And like, people are very frustrated with the political establishment a lot of the time, and what they really should be frustrated with is the cultural and spiritual dynamic of the times. And when you manage to tap into that issue and try and provide contribution there, people interpret it politically, and in doing so probably limit the impact of what's being offered.
There you go. Just use that bit.
That's the one. Cut to the chase.
I'm interested by that idea that you mentioned in the middle of that, about the idea that the song should pose questions, and it's more interesting for them to pose questions than pose answers. What questions do you feel like you were asking with your last single?
Whatever you're hearing.
With the most recent single?
Yeah, Factory.
Factory, that's, yeah.
What is school? There's one.
How hard can you hit a drum before it sounds rubbish?
I think it's kind of just, again, it's down to sort of establishment and the idea that established cultures and political agendas are the be-all and end-all, and that we can't, they or whoever they are, the establishment, I suppose, don't want us to think about alternative ways of sort of viewing life, and don't want us to then enact those alternative ways of viewing life and do something outside of the sort of 9 to 5, get a train to work, get a train home, you know.
Don't worry about the world dying.
Don't worry about the world dying, and just do your thing and be a big cog in the system, or a small cog in the system. We're all cogs in the system, but we can all contribute in much more sort of fruitful ways than just that. And I think that's kind of, you know, the question in it, what is school? It's like, well, what is the point of school? What is the establishment gaining out of us going there, you know? And you talk to a 4-year-old and you tell them to make up a story in 20 minutes. And you talk to a teenager that's been going to a state school for 10 years and ask them to make up a story in 20 minutes. And, you know, I don't want to generalise, but there's a lot of creativity that's sucked out of people. And I think we really, on the creative and artistic front in this country, certainly, I think we really have to fight for it. And, you know, it's not really encouraged because that creativity will feed into alternative ways of living and thinking, which is not what established systems necessarily want.
The walls have been built. The boxes are sorted. Your factory settings will save you from slaughter. Don't be the fool. Don't be the fool. Don't be the fool and concentrate in school.
But this is what I mean.
It's sarcastic.
I connect with that on a different level to what Al's just been talking about, because I don't believe in like a nefarious plot of overlords trying to suck the life out of society and keep everyone in check. I think that's part of life itself, and it plays itself out on all levels of being. And you in your place can intercept that and do something about it. And like, because it's so like deeply entrenched and widespread and reproduced by itself, you then do end up with systems which are doing it as well. So it's like, at what point do you intercept the monotony? And like, what I love about your lyrics is that it's always to the life of the individual, right? And when people feel empowered in their own life, they actually feel connected to what is could be described as like a movement of psyche and spirit. And the word that's generally used to describe that these days is political. But again, that's a result of only the last couple hundred years in which we've moved from societies which were overtly spiritually grounded to being overtly like materially grounded. You know, so the whole 20th century movement of the political establishment went like post-God ideas rather than going, okay, let's find another way of doing the whole sort of like humanism, spiritual movement. Let's just say we don't need any religion or spirituality and just try and find all our values in the material world. There's a fucking lot there. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot there. So it's like, if you try and deal with that stuff, no one's really well equipped enough. But everyone's got real immense amounts of power within their own life, which we all kind of give up.
And I think that's what is most common in Sam's lyrics, if you don't mind me saying, is that you're really just trying to empower the listener. You're trying to empower the person that's listening and getting them to question whatever their reality is or the situation that they might find themselves in it's not even about questioning, it's about having the agency in your life to do something for yourself and move your own life forward in a way that you want to. So it's almost like the question's irrelevant in some point. If you've had that spark or a thought because of some words that Sam sung, the job's done.
But then the funny thing is, like that exactly that word of encouragement, which is like you in your life can enlighten yourself and find ways forwards, right? Which empower you and like bring to life those around you. You take that concept, which is a really beautiful concept, to its extreme in a political format, and you've got the conservative ideology of like libertarianism, if everyone just looks after themselves, everything will be all right, which isn't fucking true at all. You know? So yeah, it's complicated.
So the lyrics from Factory Fall, interestingly, I met a chap, I can't quite picture where it was actually, but I remember being like, how mental? Because he said to me, have you ever considered how, this is recently as well, since the single's been out, have you ever considered how, you know, like in schools in the UK, they're sort of set up and they haven't changed for like 100 years since they were just training people to work in factories. You know, like you just sit, you're in a line, you know, you're in lines and rows, and when the bell goes, you change, and then you eat at this time, then you go back, and you know, it's like, you know, sometimes there's prayers in the morning, whatever, you know. It was, he reeled off, he clearly rehearsed this sort of like triggering idea, and I was just like, oh, mental, yeah, just released a song called Factory 4. But the, you know, like Joe said, the lyrics are, you know, set in a way that just says exactly as it's been repeated, you know, here's an idea, whatever you want, project your own, you know, inside it. But the intention really with things like factory settings will save you from slaughter is basically if you don't, and it's obviously tongue-in-cheek, but if you don't question the system and you just crack on and concentrate in school and do well in your qualifications, then yeah, you probably would have a chance of not being at the bottom of the pile. That's fact, right? But you know, the discussion about whether or not that's right or preconceived or accidental or product of nature or product of capitalism is, you know, is everyone's.
It's that lovely conundrum, isn't it? That ignorance is bliss and also a guarantee of total mediocrity forever.
To round us up, you mentioned an idea in the midst of that about making the listener feel empowered. When do you feel most empowered as creators?
That's a really good question. For me, when I'm playing for people, and I've only remembered that recently.
Do you think that's maybe partly what led to what we started off with chat about how you kind of grew apart a little bit? Was the absence of live music part of what drove that and not having that space?
No, actually, I think it was a necessary move within our spiritual dynamic that we share as a unified organism. But I think the environment enabled it. Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny. It's interesting because I don't often think about feeling empowered or whether I feel empowered in my life. So I don't ever really think about that, ironically, considering that you know that this band was kind of started on the precept that we wanted to empower people to think about their lives. So I find that question actually quite difficult to answer. I feel empowered every time I pick up a guitar, really. But in terms of sort of the wider empowerment, yeah.
I guess it's in joy, isn't it? Whenever you're experiencing joy with what you're doing. So it's like it's not traditional concepts of power, like in terms of domination. It's that flow. It's that flow that you were speaking about earlier. When you're feeling joy, you just feel in flow. And at times, music brings that to you, and at times, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I feel empowered by the fact that I'm alive right now, at possibly the most crucial time in human history. You know, sort of like it's all getting a bit. You know, I'm sure every generation has a feeling like this, but I feel empowered to be alive right now and doing what we're doing. You know, and very lucky to be born in this country and and be. You know, sad to say it, be this bloody ethnicity, you know, it pains me to say that, but I'm born with privilege, so that's literally an empowering thing. But I also feel empowered to have the freedom to be creative, which comes from a load of other aspects that have set me up, really, you know, having my parents like encourage music despite its lack of lucrative qualities. And also to meet these guys and really the appreciation of this empowerment comes from chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which is a spiritual practice that Joe and I both used and have adopted to remind ourselves of you know what is good and Just want to, change things a bit. Maybe. We will. We're here. We're at the place of change. We're at the precipice of King
Tut's, man. I've always wanted to come here.
King Tut's
Just
changed a
feels
lot.
Great.
Thank you for listening to our tired, disassociative ramblings.
Thank you very
I
much,
meant
guys.
everything I said.
Yeah.
I didn't.